Shabbat Shalom. I was just in Israel for a few weeks, as you know. It's really a nation right now that's going through an incredible tumultuous period. And in my very first few days of my trip, we went to see a concert by a Sephardic master of piyutim of religious poetry in Jerusalem. And she came on the stage and she was just struggling. And she said to everybody, I really did not want to be here today giving this concert. And she was very transparent. And she said this because I'm just feeling the state of the country so deeply within myself. And she just was so worried. She spoke about the deep divisions. She spoke about the rates of domestic violence have all gone up. She spoke about the broken homes, the whole country going through troubles, the life becoming unaffordably expensive, with all the other tensions that have already been there for so long. And everything she loved, it sounded like everything that she cared about was on the edge, everybody on edge. And it almost felt as if the very endeavor that brought her parents and so many others to this land and had given so much of their being to hold it together was being unraveled, and they were worried that it was all going to go into chaos, and they were losing hope. And then she said, I'm so sorry I'm being so negative in the middle of the concert. And obviously there were people at this concert who knew her well already, and they were speaking to her and saying to her, you know, we love you, and how about some simcha, how about some joy? And she said, well, we all have to really pray. We have to pray for Israel as if it's Yom Kippur. And for prayer, for healing, for peace. So she got everybody there to start praying together as if it was Yom Kippur for Israel. But I heard it so many times there, people sharing how worried they were and how angry they were at the other side, that they were destroying the incredible project and the dream of the country she loved. And it's not so easy to keep such a project alive. And once it's gone down the wrong way, once it's been handed in the wrong to the wrong shepherds, you lose the vision. And so we see in our parsha this week, Moses is coming to the end of his life, and God turns to Moses and confirms, Moses, you are not going to be the one to take the people into the Holy Land. And so Moses knows that his own dream of leading the people into Israel is gone. But what he's worried about is not himself. And he turns to God, and so many times in the Torah we hear, and God spoke to Moses saying, but here it's the opposite. V'yedaber Moshe el Adonai lemor. God spoke, Moses spoke to God. And so Moses has a few words, and he says, well, let God, source of the breath of all flesh, appoint someone over the community who shall go out before them and come in before them, and who shall take them out and bring them in, so that God's community may not be like sheep that have no shepherd. And so Moses was worried about his people. Everything he'd worked on for 40 years, for them to be a people of high values and living up to the Torah, to be a light unto the nations, a kingdom of priests. And he was worried what would happen after he was gone. And he knew how easily it could all disappear. Who would be able to do it? Who would be able to keep it going? He was worried. So there's a Hasidic story of a time when a great master died. And they were all struggling. How are we going to keep this going, what we've built up that's so beautiful and precious and unique? And who's going to be our next leader? So one of the students, Simcha Banim, told a story of a shepherd who leads his flock with a faithful heart and a diligent hand, and who guides his sheep into green pastures and leads them by still waters, like Psalm 23, and who goes looking for the lost ones and brings back the far-flung sheep. And one day he lies down in his pasture, and he's tired, and suddenly sleep grabs him and he can't resist sleep. And at midnight, he suddenly wakes up and all his sheep are gone. And so a great fear comes upon him, and he shouts, "Where are the sheep of my flock?" And he goes back and forth and he tries to find them, before suddenly he sees somewhere all the sheep crowding together, one next to the other. And he counts them, and every single one of them are there. And he stands and he cries and he says, "Master of the world, of all worlds, in my days I never had to worry about such a thing. Now, what shall I pay you, and how shall I thank you for this great act of loving kindness? I swear to you that if you also entrust your sheep in my hands, I will surely watch over them with all my capabilities, with the pupils of my eyes, like these sheep, because I love you." So when you have a miracle, something that's so precious, you'll do anything to keep it. And you know it takes all your care and it takes all your love to make sure that it's safeguarded and looked after. You'll do anything not to lose it. And if suddenly you think you're going to lose it, suddenly you feel devastated. You feel so fearful and worried. And you realize that it's not only a state of mental and intellectual power, but you need that love for the other to be able to really look after them. Only with shepherds the care for the going and the coming can you create what you're looking for. And without that, a bad intentioned or just a careless shepherd can lead all the sheep and the whole thing can collapse. A great teacher wants to find a life of purpose and of meaning, a life of spirit, a swimming up the current, against the current. And it's hard enough to swim against the current by itself, whether you're rowing up current or swimming up current. But when you feel the other people in the same boat or you are making holes in your boat, then it makes you feel devastated. So remember, as we're thinking amidst all of this, a whole nation wondering which way to go. I'm reminded of a moment in rabbinical school. We were studying all of Nach, the second part of the Bible, the prophets and the writings, all in one class. And this time studying it, so we're going through the book of Joshua, of Joshua, and then we come to the book of Judges. And the book of Judges is right after the people conquer the land, after the 40 years. And there's a refrain that becomes emblematic to that book, and that is, well, everybody did what they wanted because there was no king in Israel. And it's one of the darkest periods in the whole Bible. Just the moral degradation, the ethical degradation is horrible. A time of chaos, very dark time. But on the other hand, you find out a little bit later that a king is also not what God wanted for the people, because when the people in the book of Samuel, a little bit later, turn to Samuel, the prophet, and say, well, we'd like a king like all others. Well, suddenly Samuel makes thunder and lightning appear, and miraculously, and he says, do you really want to be like all other people? Do you really want a king? A king is going to take your daughters and your sons and your crops. Is this what you want? And so God wanted something else from them, not a king like all other nations, and not the chaos either. So maybe this time that we're in now is about finally figuring out what God in the universe really wants from us. What is our fate going to be? And how can we take the project and the dream forward, someplace we can't even imagine? And what is the way forward, even as it looks to be breaking apart? And then maybe in the absence of a shepherd like Moses, every one of us can be that kind of shepherd who cares for the other, who tries to uphold the moral and ethical and spiritual high ground, and who refuses to listen to all those voices saying, you can compromise your values, you can be like all other people. In the period of the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av that we we began last Wednesday night, is about understanding how precious it is to hold on to a miracle, the miracle of a house for God where God's presence dwells, the miracle of an aspirational life of goodness, a life of values, of a whole nation, a whole people swimming up current. And it takes all of our joint effort to keep it alive and to keep it protected with our voice, with our feet, with our hands, with our hearts. And so when the singer at the concert in Jerusalem heard all these people telling her to be happy, to have joy, so she made that prayer, and then she changed. She started to change. She began to sing Sephardic and Mizrahi wedding songs. And I got the whole room starting to clap and dance together. We can do it, that we will do it. That we will pray, we will march, and we'll work together to keep the Jewish nation a moral and spiritual beacon that is safe and vital and strong for all. Shabbat Shalom.